Hello. It's like 3 in the afternoon, and I just want to say, I know that my face is gonna look fucked up because I have the wrong lens, and I am kind of too lazy to go back and to the house and get it. I'm just doing a kind of a shorter walk. But yeah, so because of that, I think my face is just gonna look fucking weird. So I apologize. But yeah. So, I mean, at least, you know, I hope that this looks good. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, I'm just doing, I did a walk to this area, and then I'm like, fuck it, I'm gonna do this because I just wanted to come out and chat about some things I was thinking about. And you know, my roommate's using the car right now, so I'm like, well, I'm not gonna let that stop me from doing a walk. So yeah. Also an update, finally I got quote unquote caught up, where all the videos have now been uploaded up to today that I needed to get out, just to catch up. And I'm uploading the other videos that I've been working on. And so yeah, basically, I think there's a butterfly there. I don't know if I can see it. I don't know. There's some pretty flowers. It's also the greenery is just ballooned, which is awesome. But yeah, so today I should be able to post everything. All I just have to do is make thumbnails and edit the title and description, and then I will be able to upload. So I'll do that, you know, when I get back. So you guys will have seen just randomly 3 videos pop up at the same day. So, you know, sometimes it just be like that. But I have solutions for the future. I got a an Ethernet to USB-C Thunderbolt connector. So theoretically, I'll have 1 gig up and down, like I did on my wired PC. So, and that should be here today. Anyway, that's not what this is about. I don't want to spend the whole time talking about random stuff. I came out here because I've been thinking about lore. I've been watching a lot of, recently, been watching a lot of videos where people do dissections on, like, some guy was doing a dissection on the Pokemon universe and the Pokemon games, legendaries, mythical Pokemon, which, by the way, just as a side thing, you know, I've played Pokemon like Blue and Red, so Gen 1, Gen 2, Gen 3. I skipped a couple gens, then I played Black and White. So I've played, like, I don't know, like 4 or 5 different generations worth of Pokemon. So yeah, I've enjoyed it. Something I never knew, and I learned this during that lore video, that mythicals, the whole point of a mythical is you can only get them through special events. And I didn't know that. I kind of heard about, like, oh yeah, you can get, people were handing out Mews and events back when I was a kid. I just thought that was bullshit. Like, because, you know, we heard the other random things of like, oh yeah, you gotta go to the truck and walk around the truck at certain times, and you know, there was a bunch of ways that people said that you could get Mew. I thought they were all bullshit because I tried most of them. And so I thought that the in-game events were they were just passing them out was also bullshit, but that was true. And apparently every Pokemon like generation, they would give out these unique things that you could do in game, like, oh, here's a ticket, you can go and do the thing, and then there's some special cutscenes, and I'm like, wow, I didn't know any of this. I missed out on a whole bunch of cool potential stuff. But like so many other things, as a kid and growing up, I had never been a big lore person, which might seem a bit bizarre because I don't know, I read a lot of books, I enjoy all the lore in the books, so why didn't it translate to video games? Why didn't I spend my time like learning all the lore of the video games? And so I've been questioning, like, what lore have I missed over the years in these different like franchises I've played. World of Warcraft is one where there's a guy named Jibe that has been doing this blind playthrough of WoW Classic, and I'm learning all this lore that I never knew about. And yeah, I was one of the like vast majority of players that just got the quest text to go instant. You just click the quest, accept it, look it up. Where do I go? Great, I'm running over there. I'm getting the quest done so that I can hurry up and play the game. Which, you know, I was very competitive. You know, I was fighting, like I was doing really high level content in like the Burning Crusade and Wrath of the Lich King. Like, you know, I was competing on like some pretty high levels. Not the highest level, but you know, pretty much I guess I would consider myself in the past to be in that, like, you have the pros and then you have below the pros but they're like the top players that weren't pro and didn't want to be pro. And then you had, so that's the like tier 1. And tier 2 would be like where I would reside, which was I fought some of the best people, and sometimes I'd win, but most of the time I wouldn't. I had like the skill ceiling to where if I was really, really on my game, I could win, but the skill floor was much lower, where my average gameplay was worse. And at the time, I didn't know that really I was competing with people who practiced the basics, which again that's what distinguishes a pro player from someone who isn't, or someone who's at the top compared to someone who's has the potential to be at the top but doesn't necessarily get there. So anyway, I was very much, I loved the competition. I loved, you know, pushing myself to try and figure out new strats and all that stuff, right? A fucking little bird. Look at him. I don't know if you can see him behind me. Okay. But yeah, so that was kind of the whole thing. About like, in games, I would never care about the lore. And this has kind of been a trained thing where in Pokemon, and even before Pokemon, like Final Fantasy, you know, honestly, it's actually crazy. Thinking about Final Fantasy was the only game series that I actually cared about the lore. I cried when Aerith died. You know, there's like all sorts of things in the different Final Fantasies I played that like really mattered a lot. But even then, I wouldn't go out of my way to look for the lore. If the story is told to me through the gameplay, that's where I got my lore from. And anything that's, you know, I didn't go to random bookshelves and start reading all the books. That was not me. And I would say World of Warcraft and League of Legends were the two games that defined and switched the pendulum from get the lore and, you know, enjoy the like background to gameplay first, lore second. And that's kind of a shame because lore is actually really fucking awesome. It's just that it was hard for me to get invested in the lore of something because of all sorts of reasons, right? Man, this is like, I'm walking past this and it's like, oh wow, look at how beautiful this place is. You know, it's been a couple weeks since I walked on this path, so, you know, summer is in full swing and there's flowers everywhere and yeah, it's great. It's also not incredibly hot. It's warm, but it's like fine. There's a nice breeze. It's a bit hot on the breeze, but that's, again, fine. So anyway, so my point is, with WoW, because my first experiences with WoW was my friend wanting to play with me on his level 60. He had a 60 mage, and he's like, come on, hurry up and get to max level. So I, you know, went back, downloaded the game, because I played it at his house, and I was like, well, I gotta play this game because this is sick. And made my character and then started, oh yeah, look at that. That's really cool. But yeah, I also I just love the chasm. But yeah, so I started this kind of work of leveling up fast. And I say work because I didn't read the quests. If the quest, like the most memorable quests for me, because my first character was Horde, and then afterwards I made Alliance characters, so on and so forth. But my very first character was a Horde character. It was an Orc Warlock. And I vividly remember having to wake the goddamn peons up and being annoyed that sometimes they would just be awake, you know? And so I would do this, and that's the most memorable quest for me. How's it going?
Good, how are you?
Oh, pretty good.
Good.
But yeah, so that was like the most memorable quest for me. And what does that tell you about this type of like gameplay first, lore second, like thought process? If I'm not getting taught it through game mechanics or whatever, then I'm not really going to retain anything. Like, I didn't know why I was starting off in Durotar. I didn't know anything about the war chief, you know. I learned eventually through raids, cross-faction raiding, where you'd go to the enemy faction's home city. Oh, they have a king. We got to kill the king and we get rewards. Well, I say rewards, but you know, it was more just like it was enjoyable. But, and then we got to defend our war chief. And so it's like, oh, that's lore, but it was told through the gameplay, right? And so I absorbed anything that was told through gameplay, but all the fucking long ass text boxes that had, hey, why don't you stay a while and listen? And here's my text box of destiny that you need to read and listen to. You know, back then there wasn't a lot of voice acting or anything. So really, you just get presented with the text box. And, you know, it doesn't help that your friends are higher level and they're like, come on, hurry up. You gotta level up so we can play together. And so I would just, okay, where do I go? All right, go do these sets of quests. Oh, here's a guide. Because, you know, it was very new. And we could look onto Thoughtbot and, you know, whatever, to find like some basic guides that people have made. And then, oh man, years later, seeing someone compile a like paid guide that can get you to 60 on any class within 2 days or 3 days. That was like, oh shit. Now, to be fair, that was 3 days played, which still is fucking crazy. But, you know, it's a whole other thing. So, getting back to this, you have a scenario where all this lore kind of just passed me by. So that's why I've been doing these like lore focused, you know, gameplays or reviews or whatever. And it's been really fun. And it got me thinking about lore in general and why people get invested in lore in the first place. Because I think about a lot of the books I read, I get really invested in the lore of the books. And why do I get invested in the book lore at all? Because, you know, effectively it is a fake universe. It may be really well fleshed out, but it is something that makes people cry, makes people happy, angry. You know, it'll bring up all sorts of emotions as you experience the story. And I think, well, I don't have a full answer, but my answer so far is when you create lore that meshes seamlessly into the story to where you're not being info dumped, but it's just you learn it as you experience the journey. This is kind of how we do things in real life. We don't just learn about the entire history of, you know, a restaurant. Instead, it gets drip fed to us as we learn about the store or the restaurant or whatever. We find out, oh, like the owner bought it from a different owner, and you know, maybe there was a feud, and you're like, oh, I'm interested, you know. I want to know like the details here. It's almost like a gossip thing. But you know, you don't go to the restaurant for the first time and they give you a 10-page document that they said, okay, hold on, pause for a moment. I want you to read this document before you order food. That would never happen. People would leave. If that was a requirement for a restaurant, most people would not eat at that restaurant. And I think it's the same when it comes to a lot of lore in a lot of these video games. If it's not drip fed to you, it gets lost on the majority of players unless they seek it out specifically because they want to know the lore. So for Jibe as an example, he is imposing a bunch of kind of limitations to his playthrough. No spoilers, no looking things up. Kind of like, don't ask for help from high-level players. You know, if they show up and they help, that's one thing, right? But you know, he's not gonna say, hey, can you give me the best gear and the best da-da-da-da-da, whatever, right? Or hey, can you help me kill all these mobs? And because of that, because of all these restrictions that he's put on himself, he has this really cool experience of exploring and learning organically. But even then, he has to sit down, stop the gameplay to read the quest. Then he goes and does the quest. Then he comes back, stops the gameplay, reads the quest. And even though I would say the WoW lore that he's exploring is awesome and it's really well done, there's something to be said about this weird disconnect where you can just skip it. Like, it's skippable, number one, which is fine, but the fact that you have to kind of intentionally put limits on yourself in order to experience it in this immersive way says something about the storytelling, even though the storytelling is really good. And also, we're judging a 10 or 15 or 20-year-old game, depending on what game you're looking at, right? So, you know, obviously that's also something to consider. But getting back to it, the lore, why it matters, how the lore is kind of explained, and how it's drip fed over time. It's this level of lore that is the most intricate and exciting, where you learn it through the gameplay if it's a video game. In a story, you learn the lore as the player is uncovering stuff in real time. I say player, but like, you know, the main character. So like an example, the main character in the book I'm reading, and I say main character, but it really isn't a main character. It's a bunch of main characters. So you have one guy who unearths this teleportation formation. He has no idea what this teleportation formation is for, what it's about, any of that. So he goes back, he gets some information about it. He finds out that it is a teleportation formation to a lower world, and he learns that there seems to be some sort of virus that was spread as an experiment by people in this upper world that they live in. And so this character decides to spend resources to open up the teleportation formation so that he can effectively be God, come down, help everyone out, so that he can get faith and reverence and wishes fulfilled, so that he levels up this like special class, you know, standard kind of like RPG element. And yeah, I guess I'll walk a little bit on the other side. So they do this whole thing. They open up the teleportation formation. He descends into the world, and then the author kind of does like this brief glimpse into one of the characters that's living in this world. And it's a native of this world. They're surviving in this underground bunker. There's fucking ghouls and gargoyles and fucking all sorts of fucked up zombie shit outside. And then the players come in like gods, destroy everything. They're just flabbergasted. And then the players proceed to help them. Now, why does this storytelling work so well? It's because it was drip fed over the span of, 10 chapters. And we discovered, just as the players and NPCs and whatever, we discovered as they discovered it as well. And so we were never just info dumped with the lore for the whole world, because no one knew the lore for the whole world. And we had to discover it with the players. And then when the player discovers it, suddenly it's like, oh, now we know information about this world. And so this is really important to keep in mind when it comes to lore. The best lore is the lore that you naturally learn through the progression of characters, whether it be yours or a main character or whatever. Depends on the medium, right? But it has to be natural. If it's just a book that you read as a supplemental material, like, okay, imagine someone writes a book and then they say, hey, before you read this book, here is 10 pages of lore on the background of this world. You look at the guy and you're like, are you kidding me? You didn't put this just in the book for us to naturally learn? Well, no, I wanted people to understand the lore. It's like, bro, you gotta write the lore as the player or the person or the character unearths it, right? And so this is kind of a conclusion I've come to, which is the best type of lore is the lore that you don't even realize you're consuming. And that's not to say that you can't consume lore in other ways, but there is something to be said about experiencing lore through whatever medium it's being explored in a way that allows for us to slowly digest it. Because something I haven't really brought up that I think goes without saying is when you get these info dumps, it breaks the immersion to the point that some people just stop. Especially if it happens within the first 10 to 20 pages of a book. If you get an info dump, you're like, nope, I no longer care because you are giving me an info dump on things that I have not found out about. It feels almost like cheating, where you go in and you're interested in uncovering things. So it's almost like an archaeological dig, where you're slowly uncovering the knowledge and the understanding of what is this place. And less is more a lot of times, especially early on in a story. So why do I bring this up? Gotta blow my nose. I bring it up because I have to blow my nose. It is lore. Okay, sorry. So another thing that I want to bring up is I have been really enjoying watching Kumi's streams. Kumi is a VTuber. She's very funny. And honestly, the whole thing, the whole reason I watch her is because of how genuine she is, where she just is herself. And even if she feels embarrassed about something, she just is just herself. And that's it. You get the raw kind of her. And because of that, it does make you vulnerable. But if you just are yourself, people will show up for you. And you know that they're there for you, not for some persona that you're putting on. And so I've really enjoyed watching her streams because she just, again, is just herself, unapologetically. And I think she also, you can tell she's genuinely enjoys hopping on stream, talking with everyone, and doing games. And she had this stream the other day, and I promise you this does circle back to what we were talking about. But there was this stream that she did the other day where she did a Minecraft crowd, it was like a crowd controlled Minecraft where people could like effectively pay money to have things happen in her Minecraft playthrough as she's just doing stuff in Minecraft. And obviously she's trying to beat the game, but like we all know, herself included, that's never gonna happen. Because everyone that was kind of interacting, like all sorts of dumb shit was happening. And that's kind of the fun of a crowd control event, is you get all sorts of crazy stuff happening. And you could tell, even though in the moment she sometimes would get really frustrated, it was also like she was just enjoying herself, and chat was enjoying themselves, and it was like a really cool event. I even participated a little bit. I didn't spend a ton of money or anything, but like, you know, I spent a little bit to support the stream, and it was a great stream. So but why did that work? Can anyone just do that? Not really. Sure, everyone could effectively set up a stream like that, but what made it good is the slow drip of real life lore that we get to learn about her as she streams. She talks about random stuff, again, it's just herself. And so she takes the time to kind of just say what she's thinking. And sometimes she'll just, you know, she has a whole soundboard that her mods have kind of built over the years of clips of her saying stupid stuff that, like, out of context sounds insane and really funny. So yeah, but it's you can't just snap your fingers, lore dump, and then expect everyone to be invested in the stream. It's a slow build-up over time of people seeing the genuineness, and then on top of her being genuine, she is very funny. And obviously, you know, there's a level of like hamming it up a little bit, but it's like hanging out with your best friends and being a little extra. So it's that level of hamming up, as opposed to being fake and trying really hard to be someone you're not. And this is where a lot of kind of VTubers kind of end up going wrong. They build up this lore that's just not them. And so the more you interact with the person, the more you realize, like, okay, this person is kind of putting on a show. You know, obviously, that's not to say that streaming in general is not a show. It is. But there are levels of genuineness with which you can kind of interact. And it's the same thing on YouTube. It's the same thing just across the board, where lore is actually the backbone of all of it. And it's hidden. Good lore, you don't even think about. You just know. An example. And I'm going to use Kumi as an example because I think this warrants some like deeper looks. because there's something really important hidden behind this. So, it's 40 minutes. I do not have the extra battery because I wasn't expecting to do this. So I just pulled the camera out and I'm like, okay. So I got like 30 minutes left if I'm charitable with the time. Anyway, I'll get it all done. So you go into Kumi's stream and a sound clip, like let's say you've never seen Kumi before and you hear a sound clip and you know, one of them is her basically saying, hi, I'm Kumi and I just lied to you. And it's a very like nondescript like little sound clip. And you may not even, you're like, okay, well, like, where's the lore in that? The lore is in the stream that actually showed up. People who were there for the clip, they remember the original stream that came from. And so whenever it gets played, on top of the fact that she has this sound clip that is funny and can be chained in a specific way where she starts talking about something and then chat like trolls her over it by getting the link to, or getting the sound clip to pop up, and you know, perfect timing. You get all those clips of like very funny things like that. And so that's like a very wholesome, tame like clip. There are much funnier clips, but like the point is something simple like that becomes lore that people recognize. Oh, I remember when this was filmed. I was there in the chat. I watched it and it's really funny. And it's like you have a joke in the background where you're let in on that, what's it called? The inside joke. You're a part of the inside joke. And so all VTubers do this. So I'm not saying Kumi's an outlier here, but the lore that gets built up from one stream to the next is a slow drip feed. And so you don't just immediately find out about all the really funny things that go on in her stream. And the more you watch her, the deeper the inside jokes become. And this is all a form of lore building. Her lore is not the 10 paragraphs she wrote or whatever it is about her model. The true lore of Kumi is the lore of the different streams. The infamous or famous chair stream where we can argue whether that was a fart or a chair moving, but that's something where it's an inside joke and it gets brought up all the time. And if you have enough of those, people get really invested in this narrative of like, okay, we got Kumi, the person who farts, the person who does X, Y, Z, whatever, right? And so it builds up over time. Now, why am I bringing this up? Because this is another form of showcasing what world building slowly over time does to any sort of lore. And don't get it twisted, this is lore building. It's just not in the form that we would associate with world building. The lore from 8 months ago on a stream where she said one thing that became a clip that then gets spammed every chat, or I mean every stream, that's lore. So, what does this prove? Because so far I'm talking about a bunch of stuff and I'm pointing out lore, but what actually is the point of bringing this up? Well, lore at its face, good lore does something psychologically to us where we feel like we have an inside joke or an inside access to this knowledge that maybe we normally wouldn't have. Think about games, movies, TV shows. It happens in every medium. Books, where once you're into this like lore, you can go, oh yeah, you talk to your friend, hey, you see the latest episode of Game of Thrones? Oh yeah, I saw that. Did you see the part with the dog? Oh my God, that was so crazy. Can you believe that happened? Like, it was mind-blowing. And the person knows what you're talking about. And so it's like an in-group of like, you being able to talk about it with other people and have like this shared language that you only know because you watched that episode. And not just that episode, you've watched every episode of Game of Thrones. You've been watching week to week, and you guys talk about it. It's a phenomenon that is just happening, right? And because it is something that, generally speaking, gets kind of like the Game of Thrones episode I was talking about with the dogs. That genuinely, there is a dog episode that I'm sure everyone remembers if they've watched Game of Thrones. And or hold the door. You know, that's another one, right? You know if you know. And even years later, after the episodes have aired, after the show is effectively over, you can still have this common ground with people because they've watched the same things you've watched, or they've read the same things you've read. And this world building, this lore, that is very distinctly, this is the territory of memes. Like, oh, a new meme pops up in Twitch chat and everyone starts spamming it, and you find out it was from this one stream that this one person did, or whatever it is, right? It's an in-group thing. Now, what does this mean for good lore and world building? Well, if you want your lore to be successful and you want it to be interesting, there are a number of key things that must happen. And you really need to check all the boxes. If you check all the boxes, I think you've done lore right. and people will genuinely want to know about your lore. Number one, it has to be slow drip. A slow drip feed that gets brought up over the span of, days, weeks, months, however long it is, okay? Now, you have to do the right balance, because if you drip feed too slowly, people will lose interest, and that'll be that. But if you drip feed too fast, it feels like info dumping, and then you've done the opposite. So again, there's a balance there. And, I'm not going to say specifics on what the actual balance should look like, because I think it depends on the medium. If you're watching an anime and week 1 you have a little bit of drip feed that feeds into week 2, where you watch episode 1, you get like a little bit of like tidbits of the lore, and then episode 2 you get more tidbits, and then episode 3 you get the big reveal for that little lore piece. Maybe that's a really good system for anime. But you try to do that in like a video game, and people get pissed off because they don't remember what the fuck happened, because week 1 they were playing, a storyline, and then it gets time gated for next week, and you're like, what the fuck was I even doing? So that's why there's no right answer here. You just have to know the medium with which you're telling your story and kind of decide on the right amount. And again, this is like an experience thing of you learn through experience. You read a bunch of stories and you say, I really liked when this story brought out this narrative over the span of 100 pages. And then you're like, wait, maybe that is the pacing that I want for my book. And so you do it, and it works great. Awesome. But again, there's that. Also, different types of lore warrant slower or faster drip speeds. So if it's lore about a random home in the prairie, in the starter village of a World of Warcraft starting zone, that is something that may be drip fed over the span of 2 quests. And you get to know the lore. 2 or 3 quests is enough. You find out, there's some fucked up shit happening on this farm or on this prairie field, and boom, done. But if it is something like learning about, I don't know. I don't want to spoil any specific stories. So I'll say you find out that this random turtle turns out to be a god that has descended onto the mortal plane, and it has been injured. And so it's having you go on these tasks to heal it. And you don't know that's what's happening. You just know it's asking for these strange herbs. And maybe the storyline is such that at level 10, you get it a most common herb. And then at level 20, you go back and get another quest. And that new herb is harder to get. You had to be level 20 to get it. And you go all the way up to max level. and you finally get it, the final herb that it needs to heal itself. And the lore reveal is, boom, right before your eyes. The turtle consumes this ever-healing mushroom, and the turtle transforms back into a celestial god and thanks you, throws a trinket your way, and then proceeds to fly off into the distance. You're like, oh shit, that's fucking crazy. And then you think, well, maybe that's where the story ends. No, this turtle, which now is actually a god, turns out to be an entire patch in the future in this game where you get to walk side by side this god, and the god talks about trying to stop the void from consuming all life. And you care about this turtle because throughout your play, from level 10 on, you were doing quests for this turtle, and it may have spanned months because you don't level to max level right away. It takes you time. So it built this character that you care about, especially if this character gives you really good rewards. There's an even better incentive to go back and do the quests again to like continue to help him. And so this is the narrative that gets built through the slow drip of these really epic spanning stories. And if you don't do that, and someone's like, here's a 10-page document on the lore, that's not exciting at all. Hi, how's it going? That's not exciting at all. And so you totally lose the whimsy with which the lore kind of draws you in, where that turtle, it was a very simple quest. Weird talking turtle. All right, I'll help the turtle. Fuck it, you know? And it turned into this destiny saving the universe story, but it came from humble beginnings. And so that's why the level of drip feed depends on the epicness of the story. The more epic and the more expansive the story is, the slower the drip should be. Imagine a book where, I'm sure you've read, if you read books, you know, I don't want to assume, but if you read books or watch TV shows or whatever, the ones that grab you the most are the stories where the first watch through, you don't catch all the subtle things happening in the background for the bigger lore reveals. You know, I think of Severance. I'm not going to talk about spoilers at all in that show, but Severance is a perfect example of this drip feed where you don't really know what the fuck's going on. You get some basic lore, and then you work your way from there, and you see how the characters in this movie, in this TV show, are slowly trying to work their way through to understand where the fuck they are, or what they're even doing there. And bigger and bigger lore gets dropped as you progress further, and you can watch the previous episodes in a new lens where you're like, now I know about this big reveal. When did they start hinting that where I just missed it because I didn't know? This is the beauty of that drip feed. Hold on, blow my nose again. All right, so I got 10 minutes left. Let me get to the next kind of phase. You have drip feed. You have this next part of lore, which is, why should the player care? Why should the reader care? Why should the watcher care? Does it matter at all? What is the relevance? This is very important. That same turtle line could be incredibly dumb if they do all the drip feed the way that we talked about in the past. But imagine, instead of you meeting the turtle turned god at the end, the turtle doesn't turn into a god, buries itself deep into the earth, and then you hear later through some person, oh yeah, that turtle is actually a god. Now, how much did that matter to you? You just helped the turtle heal itself. That's all you know from your perspective. There's no interactions later. So the character, quite frankly, you don't care about this turtle. You're like, oh, that's nice. Oh, that's an interesting piece of lore. But like, I'm never gonna see this turtle again, so who the fuck cares, right? This is another one of those things where, like, if you kill off a character off screen, that character being killed off without, and I say off screen, but it could happen where the book that you're reading doesn't talk about it. They just say, oh yeah, this character died. Like, we don't care now because we didn't see it happen and we never had interactions with this character. So it's some random Joe Schmo, so it doesn't matter. Even if the Joe Schmo is a king or a queen or an empress or a god, who cares? So this next piece of lore is, it has to matter and tie directly into the story that you're following. If it doesn't, then you're doing it wrong. It's fine if you want to set up side stories, but just know that they can't be super epic because we don't get to see it. And because we don't see it in whatever form it takes, it doesn't matter. So that's that next kind of phase there. And then finally, you get the pacing right for the drip feed. You get it mattering to the player. The final kind of part is, and I'll just say, it sucks that this is the case, but what does the player get out of this thing happening? So an example, if I got like 6 minutes, I guess I'll walk a little bit. So if I am playing World of Warcraft and I do this turtle quest line and I get to meet him and all of this stuff, but he gives me 1 copper, which is the lowest level of currency that a level 1 would get, starting out killing like a random boar. You might even get more than 1 copper from a boar. So the fact that I did this epic spanning quest and I got nothing of value to commemorate this sort of achievement I've done, in my eyes, as someone playing, that means I must not have been a big deal. It must not have mattered. And so I'm not saying that you can't have something happen that is meaningful, impactful, that your character doesn't have anything happen to, or that there's no like reward for. You can, but you're kind of in opposition of you have to make the other two really strong if you're gonna do something like that. So if you have all three, it almost certainly will matter to the person reading it. But reading it, watching it, playing it, whatever, right? But if you only have two of the three, it can still work and it can still be really epic, but it won't have the full impact. And the reason I say that the character or the player or the reader needs to get something out of it, it's not necessarily monetary or some sort of epic reward. There has to be some sort of impact that the player in-game gets as a result of this thing happening. Same thing with like when reading, if the main character gets a new ability because he did this epic thing, that it ties in. Same thing with like maybe the main character ends up unlocking this new area that he previously couldn't go to. But now that this thing happened and he was like successful, now he's unlocked this new area that he can go into and explore. That's a good enough reward. And so for us as the reader or as the player, we get to directly experience this new bit of content that shows up in whatever form it takes. And so tying in things like this matter. So that's kind of like, you know, that's really what I'm kind of trying to get at. So, but yeah, I don't know. I just kind of wanted to bring this up, and you know, I only have like 2 minutes left before the camera shuts off. So, how's it going? So yeah, I'm gonna leave it here, but yeah, lore. It's like you can do a lot with lore to make it really the backbone of, you know, your story, your stream, your book that you're writing, the video game that you're making, whatever it is. And if you make the lore interesting enough and kind of follow this, like, these three principles that I've kind of laid out, you're bound to get people invested. And when people are invested in something, that's when you get people to kind of tell other friends, oh my God, have you played this video game? It's so good. I was just doing this quest and I did this thing and it was so cool. These are the types of things that you're looking for if you want your content or, you know, whatever it is to draw people in. So yeah. Anyway, thanks for listening. I'll see you guys tomorrow. I don't think I'm gonna film anything else today. So yeah. I'm just gonna try to finish posting everything. All right, adios.